And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we have a super simple recipe just in time for the holidays. This is for shortbread. Now I'd like to remind everyone that we have an affiliate link with Chef's Temp. If you want to check out the link in the description below, you'll also get 15% off your purchase for a new kitchen thermometer if you use code LOVEYOURFOOD on checkout. And check out those links in the description below. And in the meantime, let's get going with the ingredients with our very, very simple shortbread recipe. So it's flour, a little tiny bit of vanilla paste, some confectioner's sugar or powdered sugar, and some nice soft room temperature butter, and that's it. Shortbread is a very, very simple recipe. It's a delicious cookie. Now we are making it in the form of like a bar that you cut apart, and super, super easy. So into the mixer goes the butter and the sugar. We're using confectioner's sugar here, or powdered sugar, sometimes also referred to as icing sugar. And we're going to just cream those together. You want to start a little bit slow because powdered sugar, icing sugar will sort of puff up a little bit as you do it. We're also going to add the vanilla to this. So we're just going to add a little bit of that vanilla paste. And all the amounts are going to be in the description below. Every so often, you do want to make sure that everything is well mixed, and you're going to want to scrape down the sides to make sure there aren't any bits of butter and sugar that aren't incorporated. So we turned up the heat a little bit on this. We turned up the speed to make it nice and light and fluffy. You can see those little flecks of vanilla in there as well. We're going to scrape down the sides again, and we're ready to move on to the next part of our recipe, where we're going to be adding in our flour. So we added in our flour. We're just going to add it in all at once. Just going to put it in all at the same time. And once again, you want to start off pretty slow. So just pulse it a few times because you don't want the whole thing to puff up in a big cloud of flour in front of you. And we're just going to let that pulse for a few times until it starts to be well combined. And then we're going to keep going until it reaches this stage, which is kind of a rough, shaggy dough. Now, our flour is particularly dry, so we are going to add just a tiny bit of water to this because it's a little crumblier than we want it to be. And you can always feel free to add, if you feel like a dough you're using or a batter is not the right consistency, you can adjust it with water, you can adjust it with milk, depending on the kind of batter you're using. Just be very, very cautious. Of course, a little bit goes a long way when you're adjusting flour batters or doughs like this. So we're going to turn that out onto our greased and floured baking tray here. And this should just about fill this tray. And we're going to push that down so it makes a nice, even layer. And just work that down into all the corners. And like I said, make it as even as you can. And you can use your hands for this until you have a nice, even layer like this. Now this is going to puff up just a little bit, but it's a shortbread. It's not going to get super, super lofty. And we're going to dock it. We're just going to add a little holes to let some of the steam out as it's cooking. And we're going to do that for the whole surface. This is actually the bottom of the cookie. And once that's done, it's going to go into the oven. And into our preheated oven. And then we took it out after half an hour, and this is what it looked like. We thought, this doesn't look quite right. We were looking for just the barest hint of a golden blush on there. You don't want a whole lot of color on shortbread. You want it to just barely be a tiny bit golden at the corners and on some of the bumps and that sort of thing. So we put it back in, and it came out, and you could see, just like I said, that barest hint of a little bit of blush of color on there. This is just about perfect. Actually, it could have gone for a little bit longer, but it's a tricky thing because you don't want to go too long with shortbread. That's really the thing, or else it gets quite dry and tough. So we're going to turn this out onto a clean cutting board. Very, very carefully, and give it a little tap as well on the cutting board to make sure it all comes out. And it releases very, very nicely. And we're doing this while it is still warm. We don't want to do this while it's actually still hot out of the oven, honestly. You want to get a good long knife to cut this into bars. So we're just going to cut this into 3. Now we cooked this in a quarter hotel pan. And we're going to cut it into 3 lengthwise and then into little short bars across like this. And you can see it's still quite soft because, again, it is still cooking. It is still very, very hot. And we're just going to cut it into these nice little bars. And you could be scientific about it if you want to have, an even distribution of dots on the bottom. We didn't really care about that, so it didn't really line up that way. And then we're going to transfer them once they're nicely cut. We're going to transfer them onto a rack like this just to cool and once they're nice and cool. You can see that nice snap to them. They're a little bit crumbly inside. They're not dry. Ours came out, like I said, just a little under, so they could have used a tiny bit more cooking time. But that's it. Really, really super simple. And like I said, right in time for Christmas. This makes a great gift. Just a little bundle of a few of those for someone. It makes an awesome stocking stuffer. And they are delicious. If you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. We'd like to thank our patrons over on Patreon. If you'd like to support us there, I will put a link in the description for that as well. And remember to love your food.